Hi, everyone. I'm Mykie Stiller, the Chief Operating Officer for the Proctor Gallagher Institute, and I am so thrilled to be doing this webinar with one of our top coaches here at the Institute, Monica de Maren. Monica, how are you?
I'm great, Mykie. How are you?
I am doing great as well. You know, you have such a powerful and inspiring story, and now you work with thousands of our clients here at the Proctor Gallagher Institute, helping them transform their lives. And so I thought today we could talk a little bit about your story, about some of the things that have had the greatest impact on you and creating success in your life. And then we have a fun announcement towards the end that we will get to. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds great.
Perfect. All right, well, let's start with your story.
Mhm.
Where were you when you came across personal development or when you got into the personal development industry, and how has your life transformed?
Okay. Well, right at the very beginning on my journey in personal development, I was in network marketing and I was also an owner of a hair salon. I built up my own business and I wasn't creating the results that I wanted. So I started to look and read different books and I started to gain more knowledge and I became aware of how I wasn't really applying what I was learning to create more results. And I studied for many years. I did a lot of different, study programs. I invested in different self-study and help books, and nothing was really shifting. I loved what I was reading, and I was motivated, but I knew internally that this was a key factor that I was missing because I was reading it, but I wasn't necessarily applying it, and I didn't really understand it then. Now I do. And so my income never changed. I had two kids by that point, and I was kind of struggling still. Like everything on the outside was great, but on the inside, I knew that I kept playing it safe, and I wasn't happy with that. And then I had my third baby, and at that point, he was just about 6 weeks old, and I knew we weren't having any more. And Bob was coming to our hometown, and my husband's like, let's go see Bob Proctor. I'm like, oh, I didn't really want to go that day because I had just had the baby and I just wasn't feeling up to going. But my husband kept encouraging for us to go. So I said, okay, let's go. Inside I wanted to go, but my paradigm was telling me not to go. I know that. So when I went there, I knew the moment going was going to be the life-changing moment for me. And that's exactly what happened. Everything that Bob was teaching in that moment, I knew I needed this material. And in that moment, Mykie, I realized it was my personal responsibility to learn this. Like I had a big why. I had my kids, I had my family, and I finally got connected to the right material for me that I knew it was going to change. All of looking back, why I wasn't getting the results, because Bob's way was so simple for me. It simplified everything. So that's when I started. I got involved in a program with Bob right away about a couple weeks after, because I had a hard time making a decision on that. And I had to put the investment on a couple credit cards. So for me, it was scary because financially we were in debt as well. But I had a lot of faith too. Like inside, my inner voice was saying, just go for it. This is exactly what you need to do. And that's how I started.
I love that. You know, I love your story. I've known you for several years now, and I love your story because I find it so inspiring. I love a good success story, but I've had the privilege of watching you just completely transform in what seems like a snap. And I know it has been a couple of years, but that really, how far you've come has really happened very quickly. And so I'd like to know what process you followed or how you made such significant changes, and where do you think that the most significant changes were made in your life?
Hmm. Well, I love being a student of this. I still do. Okay. So I think it's absolutely vital to always be a student and learn more. I think being coachable has been a huge plus for me, and I'm always eager to learn more. But I also got to a point where I know that the information that I was learning was not enough. I had to make the changes. So when I got involved with Bob's program, I followed it to a T, like literally followed every direction he gave me. And that I think contributed to a huge, I think the 3-month mark was my first turning point where I really worked on my self-image constantly. And I still do up until this point. But back then, like I knew I really needed to work on the internal shift to make myself feel better, because I thought everything felt great, but until you start to become aware of this, you realize how much more you can do and be. So I was really great student from day one. From day one, I'm very proud of that. And I think like Bob said it, I think 2 weeks ago, he said, in personal development, there's no graduation date ever. And I love that because it's true. But back then, I just followed the process. Literally, I followed it. I was learning it, and I was making some little changes day by day. It wasn't some big dramatic thing I did. I focused on what I wanted. I told Bob, I want to create so much more inner happiness and make a dramatic change in my income. That was my goal. But I didn't have a clear vision. I just kept trusting if I keep studying this and keep growing, the how will show up. And that's just surrendering to the process. And I think that's the whole journey for me, is just really surrendering to it and trusting what I'm learning and following those directions.
I can relate to that so well. And, you just said surrendering to the process. Trusting and surrendering and committing to the process takes so much. It takes trust. It takes discipline. It takes a certain attitude. And so will you walk us through, because some people struggle with surrendering to the process and committing to the process, then it's so great that you were able to do that so early on. But will you really hammer down the importance of that and how people can jump into it?
Yeah, sure. So a couple steps for me, and I'll be honest, like back then I was surrendering to the process, but where my awareness was at that point, and it's different today. And I know it's going to be different next year. So for me, I think it's a huge act of faith. Like I had to trust whatever Bob was telling me it was going to work because I know he had already done it. So I already had that level of belief built into it. But like I said, you don't worry about the how, Mykie. You don't wonder if it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. You have trust and you have faith. I think that's number one. When you have this going, your expectation is going to change. So I think that's really important. I think secondly, you can't really control it all that much. Like you have to, I call it loosen the grip a bit, right? You can't control it too tightly. Like if you think it's going to go one way to get to your goal, like I had an income goal. I didn't know how it was going to work out at all, but I was open. And when you're holding on to only one way how you're going to get there, you're limiting yourself. So when you loosen that grip, so many more opportunities become visible. And you just let go, like you turn it over, you be open to the path changing, because oftentimes how you think you're going to get to your goal isn't always how it's going to happen. And then I think another important step, Mykie, is showing up. Like I show up, and back then I showed up as best as I could from how I knew I could show up. And every day, if you hold yourself to your goal, and your commitment to your goal has to mean everything to you, not just once in a while, like every day, it's all the time. And asking yourself each morning, who do I need to become to achieve this goal? And you show up as that person. That's, to me, showing up is a huge part of surrendering to the process as well. And then I think the last one is action. And Bob talks about this. I work closely with Arash. He talks about this. The universe will open doors, but you need to walk through those doors, right? So knowing what you need to do is one thing, but the action is another. So I say, I talked a lot about this, inspired actions produces prosperity. And I believe that, like in my heart, I believe that. And not overthinking it, like Arash said this, and I love how he said, and Bob says this too, ideas don't work unless you work the ideas. So that's kind of my process, kind of going through it, the faith, not holding on to things too tightly, and showing up and taking action steps.
This is so good. I hope that at the end of this, everyone goes back and listens to this again, because you just gave so many good foundational building blocks to creating success. And so you covered so many stumbling blocks along the way. Like so many people have an income goal that they're attaching to their current job, thinking, okay, if I want to get to this income, then I need to work this many more hours, or I just hope everyone listens to that again, because what you just said was pure gold. Okay, next up, I have a question. I know that Bob has helped you really stretch and go after some really big goals. A lot of us in the company joke that you have to be careful about telling your goals to Bob, because he will hold you accountable. So I would love to hear what Bob has taught you about going after a really big goal and stretching yourself.
Sure. Yeah. And it's true. I mean, sometimes we do that on purpose, us in the company, because we want to get that goal. But every single conversation I have with Bob, he's always building up my belief. And no goal is big enough for Bob. So even if you tell him one thing, he can say, well, when you reach that goal, Monica, you're going to wish you went higher. And I love that because it just makes it seem so simple. But every single time I'm talking to him, he's building up my belief and I'm gaining more trust in that. But this actually reminds me of a story when I first started, and I had a really big goal, Mykie. I don't think you know this, but I had a really, really big goal, and I wanted to reach this target. And he came up with a game plan for me to approach a business. And I knew nothing about this business at all. It was about a car dealership, and he wanted me to go and approach it. And I said, Bob, I said, this is so out of my comfort zone. And he says, listen, you'll learn why I'm telling you to do this. So okay, I'm going to do what Bob tells me to do. So I walk in and I thought I was prepared with my presentation, and I wasn't. But I went in and I completely didn't do well at all. But I kept going through, and I actually told the guy, I said, listen, I said, obviously, I mean, thanks for being really nice to me here, but we both started laughing. It was a great conversation. I couldn't wait to get back in the car. I sat for a moment and then I called Bob and I said, Bob, I completely messed that up. He goes, no, actually you didn't. He goes, in that moment, you won. That what you just did was working on you getting better. He said, you just don't understand that. He said, I wanted you to deliberately to go in there to see what it takes. And you were willing to get yourself so to your comfort zone. That's how I know how committed you are to your goal. And I'll never forget it. It was way out of my comfort zone, but that was one of the turning points. Like I was willing to do anything to hit my goal. So he built up my belief so much in that moment, and I'm so grateful for it.
That's so good. Okay, what you just talked about, you were clearly very coachable student. How important is it to be very coachable?
Like it's vital. Like it's absolutely everything. Like being coachable means you trust what your mentor is telling you, like you're open to them giving you feedback, but you're asking for feedback as well. I'm always asking, how can I do this better? Or how can I do that? Like that's being coachable, but also following their instructions. A lot of people say they want to create freedom and they want to attain these goals, but then their actions don't reflect that. But in the personal development, when you have a mentor, you have to be willing to take feedback and what they're telling you for your best interest. So I think it's applying what they're learning. Like they're telling you that for a reason. It's absolutely essential. And I just think it's so crazy if people don't. Like, I mean, we're blessed because we're surrounded by this every single day. So we know the importance of it. But even when you're studying a book, like you're having a conversation with the author is giving you what has worked for them. It would be very wise to follow instructions because then that can elevate you. It just takes one concept, one idea to change everything around entirely.
That's great advice. We have just recently announced our newest program, which is Bob Proctor's Masterclass. And it's something that we have never done before, where our students will get the opportunity to work with Bob live every single week for 6 months on an elite level, in-depth mentoring program. So can you walk me through why you're so excited about the Masterclass and what you think it's going to be like?
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited about it because we're learning everything that Bob has done since day one. Like that is phenomenal. We get bits and pieces, but it's not going to be anything that anyone has seen before on a seminar or in his books. Like it's based on Born Rich, but he's going to go in such in depth in this. And I think it's for people who are really serious about learning what Bob has done step by step on how to create the lifestyle that he's created and the freedom. I think it's really for people who are extremely committed to reaching their goals and for people who are really wanting to stretch themselves and are eager to learn and go beyond where they ever imagined before. I'm super excited for this because I know the people that get involved in this are going to it's going to blow them away.
I agree. I was talking to Bob and Araj about the Masterclass last week, and we were talking about how Masterclass is going to be based on You Were Born Rich, which Bob wrote 34 years ago, and how much he has learned on each of the topics in the book since the last 34 years. And we were talking about how whenever Bob takes a subject like attitude or decision, he doesn't just teach you surface level information about a subject. He really peels the onion and goes really deep on each subject to help you apply it to your life and really get the most out of it. And that's what I'm looking forward to in this class. It's going to be really geared towards our clients improving their wealth financially. And I think that's something that we are all working towards at all times. So looking forward to it. And any final words?
Yeah, no, just reach out if you have any questions on it. We're more than happy to help you out with it. We're super eager and excited to work with all of you.
Yes. Thanks, Monica. We're going to go ahead and put a link in the description of this video. If you would like more information about Masterclass, fill out the form. There is a limited number of seats available, so be sure to fill out the form right away so we can get you enrolled.
Thanks, Mykie.
Thanks, Monica.
I hope you enjoyed this video. We put a lot of good information up here, and it causes everything in your life to get better. If you'd like us to notify you every time we put a new video up, hit subscribe and then turn on notifications. Check out all our videos, and we will notify you when we put a new one up.